going on, everybody? Not doing a live this time. This is a pre-recorded discussion of WandaVision in the Multiverse of Madness. We're recording this on a Friday, so we'll probably put it out on the weekend, which I'm hoping you've seen the film by now. Because why would you be watching this video? But myself and my special guest, who I'm going to bring in here in a bit, will be diving deep into the big moments, our thoughts on what worked, what didn't work, the reveals, the future of the characters, post-credit scenes, endings, all that good stuff. And it's going to be a fun time. So before we get into the discussion, if you all can do me a favor, make sure you're liking this review discussion, sharing it, leaving your thoughts in the comments section. And more importantly, I'm going to bring in my guests here in a second. Check them out, support their content, and definitely do so, because you're missing out if you're not following this individual, which let me just go ahead and bring her in now. She has been part of the community for a while in regards to Marvel content, hosting a live show with me and Chris every single Wednesday, and I had to bring her on to talk these spoilers with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. What's going on, Amanda?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and to finally talk about these spoilers. My
Yeah,
God,
it's finally here, Amanda. It is finally
yeah,
here. I'm
I'm
so excited to
excited.
dive into it, because we talked about it, on Wednesday. We were kind of skating around certain things, but
Mhm,
now we could just let it all out and get into the discussion. And we were just kind of briefly talking offline regarding some, while we're recording this, some of the
mhm,
stuff is coming out. It seems to be a mixed bag, to say the least, with this
yeah.
film. Are you surprised by that in regards to some of the critical response, some of the fans not being that all into Doctor Strange too?
Honestly, I am, especially considering what happens in this movie. I didn't think
Hmm.
that people would feel like it wasn't like good enough, and I
Right.
feel like people were satisfied, but again, like Multiverse of Madness, the expectations are up
Through the
here.
roof. Yeah.
And like if once we get into the cameos, it's like, well, I was kind of disappointed. So I
Really?
understand. I was low key
Okay.
disappointed. We'll get into it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I understand the mixed bag because I feel like if you're a Sam Raimi fan, you're gonna love this no matter what.
Which I
It's
am, which I am. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
which is great. And because I love everything that he did in this, but at the same
Yeah.
time, then you're like the Marvelisms jump out, the script jumps out, there's
Mm.
like little flaws that creep through, and then I can understand why people aren't vibing with this.
Interesting. I mean, well said. I mean, I totally, and we'll get into it later as far as Sam Raimi,
Mhm.
being maybe not the taste that everyone was. I mean, of course, everyone loves the Spider-Man films, but this is not your Spider-Man film, ladies and gentlemen. This is a
Right.
much darker character and darker tones with Doctor Strange and Wanda. She's wrecking shop in this one, which we're going to definitely get into. So I was trying to look it up. I think by the time we're recording this, I want to say the not that I put a lot of stock in Rotten Tomatoes, but I think it came in a lot lower as far as, and again, we're going to get the bigger numbers on Sunday, but I think right now it's sitting at like a 74%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which again, I was not expecting. Which again, and in reality, 74 is a pretty good score for. I mean, it's
Mhm.
positive for the most part, but I was just expecting it to be. Once I saw this, man, I'm like, oh, people are gonna eat this film up, especially when it comes to those cameos. But like you said, there's some people that's like, man, that why they had to do Reed Richards and Professor X like that. So
I know.
we'll definitely dive into it. But I guess one of the first things I want to kind of get your thoughts on is kind of how we open this film, jumping right into the action. Now, we spoke about it on our live stream with Moon Knight, the 2 hour,
Mhm.
6 minute runtime.
Mm.
Did you think it was a film that had good pacing, got to the straight to the story? Or did you feel like it kind of rushed certain things? And particularly, how did you feel about, going into that intro?
I feel like the intro made sense in context. Like once
Yeah.
you're watching it for the first time, you're like, where the hell are we? They're speaking
Right.
a different language. They're running from this guy. Like it was just so fast paced, as you said. And then you get into the fact that it was a dream for Steven in 616. So for me, it's like in context, it was fine. But the
Yeah.
first half, I felt had great pacing. Like I really
Yeah.
enjoyed the first half. The build up, it was really good. You got the introduction of America Chavez. Like it was
Hmm.
really good the first half. And obviously the stuff with Wanda was great.
Yeah.
But then I felt like after that one scene where they captured Doctor Strange and America
Hmm.
Chavez and Wanda did her duty, that's when it started to fall apart for me because I felt like it was all over the place after that. And then the
Mm.
pacing, for some strange reason, it just the movie got slower.
Mm.
And I was like, when is it going to pick up? When is it going to end? Because it felt longer than 2 hours and 6 minutes, the runtime for
Yeah.
me anyway.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first half was strong and then it kind of fizzled out for me.
Very interesting, because I do have some agreeances with you in regards to some at certain paces places in the
Mhm.
film it did kind of slow down, and we talk about Doctor Strange all the time. Me and you both are kind of on the same
Yeah.
page with some of his development in the MCU has been kind of lackluster and not being as interesting. He seems just kind of like the 2.0 of Iron Man, and some people call him.
Mhm.
And I think in this film he kind of grows a little bit, but just a little bit.
Mhm.
This is his second out, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
it. I think Wanda takes this film away from him. Like literally, if you take Wanda out of this film, this film doesn't hold any weight. Like there's no,
Exactly.
he's literally is reactionary. He's reacting to Wanda's, things that she's doing, which we'll get into. I was under the impression that this film was going to be consequential to what Doctor Strange did in No Way Home, but that seemed to have no bearings at
Right.
all. I was very surprised by that. But going back to the opening, we see that the Defender Strange saves her, but first takes her powers for his own will to save the greater good. As we know, Doctor Strange is a very common theme for him, is just looking out for not just one individual but everyone across the multiverse.
Mhm.
He ends up getting killed. They push her through the portal, which brings her into the 616. But I was just curious, were you thinking about this too? Like as far as like her, where she's been this whole time, who she's been friends with. Was that something you want to kind of explore a little bit more? We do get her backstory with her moms in the multiverse, which I'm sure there's still somewhere out there. But what
Mhm.
is Mrs. America Chavez? What has she been doing for, I want to say, maybe 10 years or so? What's she been up to, you think, Amanda?
I mean, we deserved more from this character. We
Yeah.
needed to know more from this character. I really enjoyed her as a character, and like the introduction was solid,
Yeah.
but they did not do enough with her. Considering her
Yeah.
power set and her abilities,
So
it's like
fascinating. Yeah.
exactly, like, she's such an interesting character, and then we
Hmm.
didn't really get much of that, like, the memory lane moment, I'm like, "Okay, I can get on board with that." They're trying to do it fast, quick intro to understand the character, I was fine with that, but they really just cast her aside in this, and I wanna know more about her because she's so good.
Yeah.
She's great from what we saw, so, yeah, she was kinda sidelined and protected,
Yeah, very much
for
so. But yeah, and I mean,
yeah,
she shout out to the young girl who played her, whose name is slipping me at the moment. But she, I mean, this is her first big outing. I know she had a couple projects on Netflix or
yeah,
whatnot, but to give her props, her flowers, to be acting against Elizabeth Olsen, Rachel
yeah,
McAdams, Benedict Cumberbatch in this big blockbuster film,
mm,
pretty impressed with her. Like I'm really excited to learn more about the character, especially now that she's not only can travel the multiverse, but now she's going to be, a sorcerer. She's going to have a lot of
yeah.
power. So I wonder, to your point, Amanda, in regards to just getting a little bit of the character. We all know Marvel likes to plant the seeds, introduce something here, and get to
Mm,
fruition later on. But I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Marvel had came out and had some concept art that she was supposedly supposed to be in Spider-Man first and
yeah.
then coming here, which it makes me kind of wonder, okay, how, if Spider-Man had a lot going on, what
Mm,
would have been the origins and the explanation there, and then how she would have already been in our 616. So I guess we know there was a lot of reshoots, a lot of rewrites.
a
So
lot,
I
yeah.
wonder how they would have handled that if that would have been the case with her appearing in Spider-Man first. I'm just very curious on that.
Yeah,
Wonder how
same.
they
I
get
mean,
that layout.
because even, like, in the movie, she doesn't know who Spider-Man is, so
Right.
I'm like, "That's interesting because like, you've traveled, like, over 60 universes, you don't know who
Haven't come across
Spider-Man
one
is?"
Spider-Man. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was interesting to me.
Very interesting. And again, I hope that we get more, and I mean, hope we're going to get more
Oh,
of the
yeah.
character, but I hope that they explore that character more.
Mhm.
We've been speculating since WandaVision. Young Avengers are right around the corner. We already got Hawkeye and Haley Steinfeld's character there, and obviously the
Yeah.
twins. They're still going to make an appearance, so it'll be really interesting to see what they do with her. But one of the
Mm,
conversations that I just wanted to pose to you, Amanda, is a conversation that happens very early on. It's kind of a quick scene, but a pretty deep scene regarding the decisions that Doctor Strange has made in the past, and this film really kind of highlighting him being, a leader, obviously, but sometimes his decisions aren't always the best ones. And that
mm,
conversation in regards to, did you make the right call with giving Thanos a time stone? Yeah, I made the right call. Oh, of course, you're the best surgeon and the best hero too. Small
mhm.
scene, but how did you take in that little moment there between these two characters and just really hitting home that Doctor Strange has a lot of weight on his shoulders?
I feel like it was also a callback to the first Doctor Strange, especially using this character who is like the only one that's like really connected to him apart from more I always say Mordor from Lord of the Rings, and I hate that I say that. It's Mordo.
Mordo,
Literally,
yeah,
it just comes out. So like Mordo, obviously, like he's in the alternate universe, and
yeah,
then like Christine's like married off or whatever.
right,
But this
right,
was like a character that didn't really like him. They didn't have a
yeah,
great connection or anything, and they're
right,
talking to each other. So it's a different callback. It's a different person from his past
yeah,
that's like, of course you made the right call. Of course, like your arrogance, your ego, and all of
yeah,
that. But then in that conversation itself, we as the audience who have gone through Infinity War and Endgame
hmm,
with Doctor Strange, he's an entirely different person. So
yeah,
even in that conversation, it's like we're listening to him and he's like very sure of himself, but it's like we've seen that growth.
hmm,
We've seen that development. And I think that's important for the audience to kind of clue in, and instead of like even Steven saying anything back to him in that case, even more of a conversation piece. You could have gotten
right,
into it with him entirely,
yeah.
but it was just like very subtle and minimal that it really hit, showing that he has grown so much in
Right.
making those decisions.
And I mean, he's been gone for 5 years himself. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
a decision that affected him. And I hope that Marvel and I like that they're still continuing that thread of Endgame and Infinity War. Like it's
Mm,
still affecting people. People like
mm,
the surgeon said he lost his two cats, but also lost his brother. So during
yeah.
that 5 year time, so it is something that I really appreciate that Marvel keeps hitting that home and also allowing us
Mhm.
to know that someone just as powerful as Doctor Strange, who's crossing multiverses, fighting demons and monsters, there's still that layer of reality of kind of, connecting with that character. But
Yeah.
speaking of layer of reality, I mean, this is where we get into the madness here. I mean, we have this gigantic one-eyed monster, America Chavez running around. Doctor Strange is able to take it out pretty easily. As far as the first, well, I guess the second technically action set piece, how did you feel about the CGI and the moment of this scene? Was it something that was one of your highlights, or was it just like it was an okay scene?
I was obsessed with it. I was just like, I think from the moment that he literally took the sip of the martini, jumped off the
Oh, jump! That was so
balcony,
cool. That was
the
so
cape,
cool.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
he's cool. I was
It's
like, because
cool.
we like, right? Like we know how we feel about him. We talk
Right,
about it all
right.
the time. But I'm like, he's so cool. Like, thank God you did
Got some
this, Raimi. Like,
swag. Yeah.
yeah, like that was just like, come on. Like, who needs a superhero landing? You're like going and flying. Like, it was just so
Yes.
great.
Yep.
I was
Levitating
so
infinity. Yeah.
happy. Yeah. So again, like we see his power set. Like that's all like you and I
Yep.
have ever wanted for Doctor Strange. Full capacity. Like let's go,
Yep.
let's see everything. But effortless. He was
Yep.
fighting him effortless. He saw Chavez. I thought the character design, the creature design was fantastic. I thought it
Yeah, it
was
was pretty
really
cool.
strong, right?
Yep.
Like different too. And then like going into this, the it was graphic. It was graphic, and,
Oh
like,
yeah.
I didn't expect it, and I think that's what made me enjoy the first half so much. Because like,
Hmm.
Raimi's like, "We're gonna do a great
We
introduction
going
to
there.
this
Yep.
movie.
Hmm.
We're gonna, like, take the eyeball out." I was like, "What? Like, we're
Yep.
doing this?" I was like, literally, people in my screening were, like, in shock, and it was so funny because like, we're not used to that in this type of, the MCU, but
Yeah.
I was impressed. There were some, like, wonky moments with the CGI, but that's, like
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we get the same news that we heard from Spider-Man that the VFX team were still working on visual effects while it was in
yeah.
theaters that first week. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear those news because to your point, the scene was awesome,
Yeah.
but there were some moments when you would see a live action character interacting with it
Yeah.
that you can see. Obviously, it's not a real monster, but it's a
Yeah.
visual effects creation. But yeah,
Mhm.
I would imagine in the next few days they'll be ironing out all the details. But it was a fun scene, and like you said, I'm a horror
Mhm.
fan, so when they stabbed the gigantic one-eyed monster with the light pole, it was pretty graphic, and that was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the
Ooh,
violence.
yeah.
But getting back, we briefly touched on it, but I guess I'm now thinking about it coming off of my high. I am kind of disappointed that they're still not connecting the pieces from not just No Way Home, but the ramifications for WandaVision, the ramifications from
Yeah.
Loki. It's still not coming
That one.
together. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on? Again, we know Marvel is the end game, right? They're setting the seeds for 10
Yeah.
years from now, but I'm not gonna lie, man. I thought that they were gonna be based on the trailers, based on everything from No Way Home. I thought that this is Doctor Strange. You disrupted the multiverse, and now you have consequences for your actions. But nope,
Yeah.
they just make it a joke about Spider-Man and webs
Yeah.
coming out of his butt and stuff like that. It's like, wait, what? That's the only mention
Yeah.
of his ramifications in the last film. Were you a little bit disappointed from that?
Yeah, because there were rumors too that Loki was going to be in this.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm like, well, it would have made sense if you had Loki and Wanda and Strange in the exact same movie dealing with, I guess like it was an incursion, as we like learned in this film, that Loki did that, Wanda did that. Like, you had explained it to us in this
yep,
movie. Show us. I think that was
yeah,
a major thing in this as well. Like, there was so much exposition and telling us what the multiverse was that
hmm
like we didn't visually see the extent of it. Like, we
yeah,
saw it in Loki, we saw it in WandaVision, but what's the aftermath of that? We still didn't
right.
touch that, as you said. So I am disappointed that like it was rumored that Loki was going to be in this,
hmm
and we're still not going to know. It's not like they're going to explain it in season 2,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah,
that
it's
would have been attached to like what Strange is doing.
right. Right,
So
I agree. And then rumors out there. I think even Sam Raimi said there's another like 30, 40 minutes of the film that's been cut out. We know that they were reshooting like literally months ago. They were still, well, not months ago, but probably like 6 months ago, they were back to reshoot. So,
hmm
we live in this time now where we know everything about the films more so than we ever do. But you can definitely tell that there are moments in this film that it would have been beneficial to have that extra 20 to 15 minutes to really kind
Oh
of
yeah.
establish the world, get really into the multiverse. Because again, I was just being a horror fan. I was just coming off of a high when I saw it on Monday, but now just thinking about it, the
Granted.
multiverse of madness. There's really not a lot of madness and multiversal. We literally
hmm
go from 616 to I think it was the 838 in
hmm
with that world, and we obviously had them going through the other portals. But I thought we were going to be hopping on different multiverses, different worlds, interacting with different characters. Maybe, the rumors are being said that there were supposed to be a Loki or an Iron Man cameo here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed by not being truly in the madness. Which,
hmm
speaking of madness, nightmares, Wanda, I mean, we got to talk about it, Amanda. When we first get introduced to
Oh
her, the WandaVision comes on, we see her
yeah.
with the boys, and then we see that this is a nightmare. She lives this over and over and over again. Your thoughts of the introduction to getting reintroduced to Wanda Maximoff?
I love the music cue. It reminded me of the Wakanda music cue in, I think it was Infinity War. It was Infinity War when they played the little.
Yep.
I was like,
When
yes,
it's
we're
like we gotta go
going. I was
back.
like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
it was so good. So
Yeah.
it was a nice callback, and it's so great that we have those pieces of music that
Yep.
identify with
That
that
initial key.
character.
Yep.
So it's so fun that they did that. I love that.
Yes.
And I think because we stayed with Wanda for those 9 episodes,
Yeah.
you're already emotionally connected to her, to those kids, to that world. And then when she pulls out of it, it's like you feel for her even more.
Yep.
Um, so I like that introduction. I thought personally Elizabeth Olsen gave a better performance in this film than she did in WandaVision, maybe because she had a little
Mm.
bit. I feel like it was just different. It was a
Right.
different
She's
scale and
yeah.
everything, and like
I hear you.
I just preferred this this character that she
Yeah.
put on, this role. I really enjoyed this more, and I was just very impressed. I think the connection between Raimi's horror
Yeah.
and then
Mixed in
her,
with her
like,
acting
oh
sensibilities. It's a perfect
yeah,
match. I hope they work
yeah,
together again, of course,
same,
in the MCU, but maybe in
yeah.
other projects. Because yeah, there is a good synergy. She
Mhm.
fully, not that this was like over the top, but she fully played into Sam Raimi isms, especially with like certain jump scares,
Yeah.
certain horror elements. I thought that she definitely knew the assignment and delivered.
Mhm.
I mean, again, we said it already, but I think she stole the film. Like
Oh,
literally, if she's not in the film, I don't know what Doctor Strange would have done. But yeah, she was great. But we see that at this point, Doctor Strange, they mention when they're talking to America Chavez that there is these demons chasing her and this is witchcraft. So then we see Doctor Strange pays a visit to her, and the back and forth conversation between these two powerful beings, as we see that Wanda, she slips up and says, oh, why don't you just bring Chavez to me? He's like, well, Wanda, I never mentioned her name. And so,
yeah,
I'm good at hexes, but I'm not good at lying. And just
yeah,
having that conversation between these two as she transitions from Wanda into, literally, as you mentioned, the performance from Wanda to the Scarlet Witch is just so beautiful to see. Kind of
yeah,
like we just recently saw Oscar Isaac going between his different, characters. That scene, Amanda, was just so cool to me. Just seeing that switch in the
yeah,
character, and she tells him, as we see in the commercial, you do something, as in giving the Infinity Stone to Thanos, and you're the hero. But I do is something, I become the villain. just
Yeah.
again, if you have any more things to add on just that switch of her performance and just the badassness from the character, I mean, she's great.
I mean, you said the perfect word, like complete badass. I really loved her costume in this. I know that
Yes.
we got a glimpse of it in like in WandaVision, but I feel like they just made like the colors a bit darker and it
Yeah.
just worked,
Hmm.
and then her
Hmm.
makeup on top of that, it was so good.
I think it just shows the manifestation of the corruption is now kind of growing into her and turning more into her. So I think there's definitely from when we first saw that costume, like you mentioned in WandaVision, to now, it's I think because even her heart is like covered up by the costume and all that stuff. So I definitely agree with you there that there's been a
Yeah,
an upgrade per se from the TV into the
for
films. And
sure.
hopefully when we see, Falcon again, he has a bit of an upgrade from the TV to the show. I know you like that
God,
there. So hopefully
fix
we get
the
some
neck,
upgrades.
please.
Yes. Yes, Marvel, do
Please.
something with that. Let's get some costume changes there. But she makes her threats to Doctor Strange. Next time you see me, it's not going to be Wanda Aston. It's going to be the Scarlet Witch, which leads
Yep.
us into just her wrecking shop, Amanda. She makes it to their, first off, they're ready for war. They got all their sorcerers there. Things are looking okay for a minute, as she brings all the smoke, as we see in the screen here. She wanted to smoke, but it didn't last that long as great callback to Age of Ultron. She manipulates people's minds. She's able to get into his mind and tells him to run and breaks the spell that they have. And Amanda, she just goes in on these sorcerers. It was just
I
so
know.
incredible to see her full. We talked about Doctor Strange is kind of being fully unleashed, but seeing Wanda, or I should say at this point, the Scarlet Witch, she's unstoppable. Which leads us into I think one of the first true horror elements of this movie. They have America Chavez. They're now, they're trying to keep her protected. But we see Wanda, who's broken out of Doctor Strange's spell in the mirror dimension, and she comes through the reflections, like straight up out of like Lights Out or like a fairy tale thing. She comes out of
Yeah,
the instrument and the body contortion, Amanda. I mean, this is just amazing.
I
Your
know.
thoughts on this whole sequence that played out here?
I was absolutely floored. I think that even like the way she was talking to Strange, like, this is me being reasonable. It's like, oh,
Right.
girl,
Yep.
oh no, like, what are you about to do? But like, she did not care. It was ridiculous. And the fact that, like, we know that she's a mutant.
Yeah.
Like we know that. And
Yep.
then just to see the callback of like even with Charles Xavier and being able to like read people's minds
Mm-hmm.
and going
Mm-hmm.
into their minds, like her doing that, like I kind of got emotional. I was like, we're finally getting
Kind
like
of diving
the
that side of the character.
what
Yeah.
yeah, which I really loved. In that one scene where she just like wraps around the guy and then she's like, run. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay,
Scared.
like it's just wild. It
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah.
I was terrified of her. I think
So
like
terrifying.
it literally pays you have to give credit to Sam Raimi
Mm-hmm.
because that elevated the character
Yes.
entirely.
Yes.
And then the set pieces as well, like you said, like being enclosed in like the glass and then
Yes.
going through the reflections, the freaking contortion. I was sitting there
Oh
like,
man.
is he doing like, is this
Yes.
a
I'm like,
Marvel
is this a Marvel?
movie?
Exactly.
Right? And
Yes.
like it's
Yes.
fantastic.
I'm like,
It's
am I
so
watching
different.
Malignant? Is this James
Yeah.
Wan? This movie? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just great.
It's so fantastic. I think, listen, I'm gonna say it now, Amanda. The Thanos of the world definitely conquered the Avengers, top tier villain. Killmonger,
Mhm.
Michael B. Jordan killed that role
Yep.
literally. Hela was great. We got some pretty solid villains in the MCU.
Mhm.
Winter Soldier, of course.
Yeah.
But Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, man, I haven't been this afraid of a villain
I
probably
know.
since Winter Soldier, like straight up since
Yeah.
2014. Because every time Bucky got on the screen, I'm like, I don't even know who's gonna live. I don't even know, and that's how I felt with Wanda in this film. Like, I've
Yeah.
Wong, you're dead. America Chavez, you're like, she was
Yeah.
just that menacing, and you said it so perfectly. Sam Raimi knew to play on those sensibilities of the character because the
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch, when unleashed, is extremely terrifying. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
displayed that beautifully. Which, speaking of display, again, going back to our multiverse conversation, We see them briefly going through the multiverse, which is cool to see. But again, it would have been nice to maybe stay in one of those portals for just a couple scenes, interact with a couple
Yeah.
different people. But hey, 2 hours and 6 minutes, you only got a certain amount of time to do so,
Yeah,
which, we talked about that.
I
But
get it.
they're now in Earth 838, where
Mhm.
green means stop and stop means go. And they have this futuristic, but it makes sense that it's so futuristic because we know this particular world has a particular genius in it that we'll talk about in Mr. Fantastic. But they're there to interact with their Doctor Strange as they
Mhm.
find out that this Doctor Strange is no longer here. But I do want to quickly shout out Bruce Campbell. We get his
Yes.
cameo in here, which for Sam Raimi fans and Evil Dead fans, that was a great callback to when his hand, I think it was Evil Dead 2, and his hand possessed him and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So him slapping him stuff was pretty funny. I'm
It
not
was
gonna
good
lie.
stuff.
But you mentioned it earlier. This is where we get the exposition when we find out about her moms, and which I thought was a really good scene. Again, I am under the assumption that her moms will find her, or she'll find her moms
Yeah.
out there in the multiverse. But thoughts on, and I mentioned in my nine when we were talking about it on Wednesday, the relationship between Doctor Strange and I would say Rachel McAdams' character, Christine. We
Mhm.
get that flashback. Is it me, or how do you take in their relationship? Is this something that you have been a fan of? You would like to see explore more? Just your thoughts on this whole relationship between Christine and Doctor Strange. Did it work for you in this film?
It kind of did just because it pulls on the heartstrings basically because in every single universe, they're not together.
Right.
He
Yeah.
fumbles the
Yep.
ball. It's like there's
Yep.
something that happens, and
They're like
it
literally they're not meant to be together.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
sucks because he loves her, she loves him, like,
Yeah.
it sucks,
Yeah.
but at the same time, how many times are we gonna do this? That's what I understand that from the first movie to now, it's been,
Yeah.
like, X amount of years, we haven't
Yep.
seen Rachel McAdams in it, but it has to come to a close
Yeah.
somehow, and I feel like there still wasn't closure
Yeah.
in a way because he can hop to other multiverses and try to find he can
Yeah,
do it, it's not
he
like he
knows one
can't.
Christine is available in this world. So yeah, maybe they'll do a multi-first
Exactly.
booty call or something like that. We'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, I was okay with it. I mean, I adore
Yeah,
Rachel McAdams,
she's
like,
good.
in
Yeah, I love her.
everything, so
Yeah,
it's hard to be like, "Nah, I don't like them," but it's
right.
fine.
No, I agree. I mean, I definitely agree with you that it is just from a script and narrative perspective that literally, as you just mentioned, there is no multiverse where they're meant to be together.
Yeah,
And every time we see Strange trying to force the issue, what if episode, we saw the
yeah,
ramifications of that. We see it in this film with our evil Doctor Strange, we'll talk a little bit about later. So it
yeah.
is, poetically speaking, it is like forbidden love per se. So you
Yes.
definitely kind of feel for
Yeah,
Strange. But it looks like he might have a new love interest by the end of this film that we'll talk about a little bit later. But
yeah.
you mentioned Mordo a little bit earlier, Baron Mordo, and we get him in this
Mhm.
film. The wig, the braids, yeah, not working for me, man. But the thing
Mm-mm.
that I will say that didn't work for me, I'm so curious on why. I don't think Marvel knows what they're doing with Chiwetel Ejiofor, Oscar-winning type of performer. I think
I
he's
know.
great in the films, but I don't know if they know
Mhm.
what they're doing with the character. Because what is
No.
our 616 Mordo doing? Like, where has he been? Last time we saw him was a post-credit scene saying there's
Yeah.
too many sorcerers, there's too many, whatever. Where is he at, Amanda? Do you have any like absence of like where that character is in our multiverse in the 616 world?
Yeah, I have no idea. I just feel like this is a good sequel, but it's a sequel to, like, WandaVision. It's a sequel
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Loki. Oh, wait, like, that's what this is a sequel to.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Yep.
like you said, Mordo's, like, it's unfinished business, so, like, why
Yes.
wouldn't you, like, make it a direct sequel?
Yeah. I agree.
That's what bothers
It
me.
always reminds me of on a much different level, but like Godzilla versus Kong, much different film. But that to me felt more of a sequel to Godzilla's or Kong's film from Kong Skull Island versus a
Right.
Godzilla film. And I definitely felt that's like you just mentioned
Yeah.
from Wanda to WandaVision. This was a great handoff from one to the next. But
Yeah.
and listen, I'm not the biggest Doctor Strange fan as it is, but to your point, we didn't get as many connective
Mhm.
ties to that film. Like there's no mention on the ancient one. There's no mention again of that Mordor.
Mhm.
There's no mention of a lot of stuff that went down in that film besides obviously
Yeah.
him becoming Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer
Mhm.
Supreme and all that. But yeah, it definitely kind of, and I wonder, just on a completely side tangent, I wonder if that's where
Mhm.
Scott Derrickson, maybe that creative differences conversation
Yeah.
came to be. He's like, look, Kevin, you want to introduce this character, that character, this, that, and the third. I just want to make a sequel to the film I made, in
Yeah,
2016. So I can definitely see where, as a director, that issue could have come about with just not following up from the main character's main
yeah,
narrative from the first film. But
I agree.
we'll see if 3, especially with us talking about not being and I think this film's going to crush box office wise, but maybe
Yeah,
not hitting home collectively amongst the fans. They might go back to the drawing board and really kind of focus on Doctor Strange in the next film. But we'll see what comes of that. But I will say, cool scenes here, going back to the dark, twisted Scarlet Witch, what she's able to do, dream walking. We get Mordo telling our characters that, there is a spell in the dark hole that allows you, which I was so like fanning out with this moment, because just being a fan of like multiverses and
hmm
nightmares, you can dream walk in different planes in different people's bodies and possess them, which is, as we mentioned, Sam Raimi is all in his film. He loves possessing people. We see Wanda Amanda going to the 838 Wanda, and I feel so bad for that Wanda
I
because she's just living her
know.
life with her boys. Which, by the way, Vision. Why was there no Vision in this film?
I feel like he's dead. I feel like in every universe,
He
Vision has
dies.
to die. I think so because of if Thanos.
Man,
Because how else if how obviously gonna die battling Thanos. I have a
yeah,
strong feeling that's what it is in each multiverse,
man.
which I'm
I thought,
okay with.
yeah, yeah.
I'm okay with it.
I don't know. I just felt like we get a
Mm,
mention of Vision, like when Wanda says, I had to pull the stone out of my husband's head or whatever. But I thought that this would have been, talk about missed opportunities. I just thought we would have saw a Vision. That would have made
yeah,
her nightmares even more. Like that Wanda not only has kids but has Vision, but he was
yeah,
missing from the film. But going back into creepy moments, Amanda, the moment when she first takes over her body and we see her looking through the picture, there's like a thunderstorm going on in the glass, and then she
like
looks in the mirror, and again, James Wan, who takes a lot of kind of sensibilities from Sam Raimi, but I just felt like Conjuring vibes in this
yes.
moment when she's looking, or Insidious vibes when she looks in the mirror and the witch takes her over. The horror elements again, man. I know we talked about some of the shortcomings and some of the CGI and some of the character
hmm
development, but you can't deny the horror was just so great in this film.
Yeah.
It was just
Oh,
so fantastic.
100%. Next level.
Next
Every
level.
single time, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get Scarlet Witch scenes. Oh my God, I'm so excited for this. Every time she came on, it was because of the horror elements. I'm like, what is
Yes.
Sam Raimi going to do next?
Yes.
Which is fantastic. Don't get me
Yep.
wrong, but I shouldn't be waiting for those moments.
Yeah. And which
That's
made
the issue with this. But I loved it.
oh
I thought even the score, Danny Elfman,
yeah,
oh
the little
my God.
piano
Like,
ding, like whenever she was
yes.
in the oh man.
So
Oh
good.
man.
The witchy sounds too, like just
Yes.
like she's creeping around the shadows that were used, like just fantastic work on that part. Like we can talk about visuals all day
All
because
day.
he killed it. He really
Yeah.
did.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And I would love, we know that we're getting the Agatha Harkness show. I don't know if
Mm.
Sam Raimi at all would be invested into doing a TV show. I mean, he did
Ooh,
Evil Dead, the TV show, as a executive producer, but I would love to get his,
yeah.
as you mentioned, the witchy
He's so
horror
smart.
vibes be implemented to Agatha Harkness. Or, I mean, hell, we talked about Doctor Strange 3 and maybe getting more Sam Raimi. Give Sam Raimi a Wanda film, and let
Yeah.
let him dive into the depths of that character. But yeah, Agatha Harkness is someone that comes to mind. And when you mentioned how he was able to really, you know, put an emphasis on witchcraft and the taking advantage and possessing people, I would love to see him have some input on that show. But we
Yeah.
see at this point in the film, Wong, he is last man standing. One of his sorcerers still survive, and she destroys the dark hole, which I found that to be a little, I don't know, kind of underwhelming. I thought the Dark Hole was just like so,
Yeah.
in the Vishanti, the Book of Vishanti, too, got destroyed pretty easily.
I was just
But
like,
yeah, it's like, oh, it could have been a little bit more creative. But
mm,
the scene is pretty, visceral because she stabs the book, destroys it, and
mhm.
unfortunately she burns her alive, which again just shows you she is diving deeper into the
Yeah.
darkness. But Wong tells her where she can find the backup copy of the book in the mountains there, which we'll get into. I will say that scene, like visual effects wise, those creatures looked a little weird to me. They looked like
Yeah.
Transformers at points, but
Yeah.
it was cool to know that the the prophecy that is across the multiverse, that Wanda is prophesized to be the Scarlet Witch, from from WandaVision, which I guess, just
Yeah.
thinking about it, why didn't all the Wandas become a Scarlet Witch? Like, do you think that Wanda in 838 was ever a Scarlet Witch, or just hasn't hit that point in her life where she's like introduced to the Scarlet Witch?
Maybe. You know what? Like, once you implement the rules within the multiverse,
Yeah.
it's kinda hard to understand certain elements, I think,
Yeah.
and it's like, you can only suspend your disbelief for so
Yeah.
long, be like, "Let's roll
Yeah.
with the punches, let's see where this
Right.
goes," but then it's
Right.
like, logic comes into play, and it's like, "What if this happens, and what if this happens? But, like, why is
Yeah.
this person there, but can they be this other person in this
In
universe?"
another
Like,
world.
it's just,
Yeah.
which we'll get to because I have peeves with that whole scene.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like it's very confusing. And also like with that scene in particular that she
Yep.
has this throne,
Hmm.
right? This should have just been a Scarlet Witch movie because I feel like we're getting more backstory and more development of the Scarlet Witch
Yeah.
than we have for Doctor Strange. Like, I'm
100%.
surprised that this is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where it should have just been Scarlet Witch, and like Strange finds
Mm.
out that she's doing all this.
You're just thinking about that. Yes, you're so right, Amanda. That this could have been a
Just
Scarlet
flip
Witch
it.
featuring Doctor Strange film,
Yeah,
like
like literally
100%.
flip it.
Yeah.
Introduce America Chavez. You can still do that because
Yep.
Wanda's
Because
chasing
she's
her,
chasing her. Yeah. Whew, that would have been so badass, because we would have been seeing it
right?
from a this is like Marvel's first official like villain film. Well, Thanos was like the lead, if you look at it
Yeah.
that way, of Infinity War, but like to have a once hero turned villain, that would have been a whole nother switch for
Yeah.
Marvel. Man, I don't know, man.
See?
I think you're onto something, as far as that would have been a perfect opportunity to
Yeah.
have that be like Marvel's first dive into a villain led film, with Doctor Strange being the person taking her. Oh, that would have been so
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we that's essentially what this film is. It just happened to be
Yeah,
Doctor
it just
Strange in the
in a
headline.
different way, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man,
Yeah.
I really love what they did with this character. And again, no shade at Doctor Strange, but it's just she's more fascinating. She's just more
Yeah.
inherently, in my opinion, just more of a
Mhm.
fascinating character, and more of a
100%.
character study than Doctor Strange, in my opinion. And it seems like you
Mhm.
agree with me there, as far as
Yeah.
she's just so fascinating. But we go from her learning of the prophecy, taking on the throne. She loses possession of the body, but as she learns another way to do so from the inscriptions on the wall. But then we go back to Doctor Strange, because at this point, Doctor Strange and America Chavez, they've been captured. They're in their caged off, cages here. And then this
Mhm.
is when I nerded out, Amanda, and I was in the crowd. So I'm in the press screening, and I normally press screenings are kind of boring, if we're being honest, because not
Yeah.
everyone's taking notes, being all serious, versus a Friday night crowd. I geeked out, Amanda, when we're in the room with Christine, Palmer, and she mentions that, we're in 81838, you're from the 616, our Doctor Strange, this, that, and the other. But this whole facility has been, funded by the Baxter program. And when she said
Mhm.
Baxter, I'm like, oh boy. Normally what comes with Baxter is the Fantastic Four, which brings us
Yeah.
into, it's time to see the Illuminati, Amanda. We go down the
Mhm.
halls. Now, I know you
Mhm.
said you have some grievances, but I mean, we got to admit, Amanda, when you see Captain Carter, you see, shout out to Black Bolt, who this is the same
Yes.
actor that played in that despicable show, in Humans, which makes me wonder, is Marvel now going to bring back some other TV characters, Shield
Maybe.
agents,
Yeah.
recast Iron Fist? Do not bring him back.
We keep saying
Yeah,
it.
do not bring him back. So I wonder if that's the case. But you see him, you get Monica or Marie Rambeau, and I gotta take the time to just put a light on
Yeah,
John Krasinski, Amanda,
I
as Reed
know.
Richards. Now, this has been prophesized for years. Fan casting,
Mhm.
he would be so great. And I mean, we was like, yes, but I mean, this is probably not going to happen. He tried to be Captain America, didn't work out for him. It
Mhm.
worked out for Chris Evans. That boat is probably passed. But Amanda, they did it. They did a
They did
thing.
it.
They casted him, which, if we were to theorize, if he is the Reed Richards in that universe, he's probably a Reed Richards in somewhere else, and we can get him back. Your thoughts on this reveal, and then of course you can kind of transition into what didn't work for you when it comes to the Illuminati.
Yeah, I was geeking out. I enjoyed it. For me, unfortunately, I was spoiled before I watched this.
Same.
And I
Same.
think yeah, so I think that was
Yeah.
the reason why I was like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
like, this is how we're doing it."
Yeah.
Because not only was I spoiled with this, I was
Mhm.
spoiled with what came after.
Oh, the depth
So
scene?
so
Oh,
I know,
no.
because I put 2 and 2 together, like, there were images,
Ah,
and then I put 2 and 2
yeah. It's
together, I'm
like,
like, "They're
those
gonna
are
do
probably
that, aren't
true.
they?"
Damn. What
Right?
was it on? It was
So
like a Twitter or Instagram
it
or
was Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, I
God
was
damn it.
very upset with that, but in
Yeah.
context, again, we got more
Right.
time
Right.
with Reed.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
really I liked it for what it was. I
Mhm.
don't know what it is about Krasinski, he was a bit stiff. I don't know, like, I felt like he was a
Not
bit
Jim
stiff.
Halpert.
I know,
Yeah.
and, like, I had a smile on my face, like, I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay,
Mhm.
he's here, this is good." The
Right.
whole it felt like and I wanna say this, like, it
Do
just
it. Do it.
cameo-wise,
Mhm.
Black Bolt,
Mhm.
like, do we care? No offense to this guy, but, like, really? And then, like, I really love, that they put Maria Rambeau. Don't get me wrong, but, like, I feel like people aren't going to, like, appreciate maybe that there's this switch up, like, even Captain
Right.
Carter. Like,
Right.
if you're saying Multiverse of Madness,
Mhm.
these cameos, like, they're strong, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but it's the fact that, like, for the general audience, they're all
Mhm.
waiting for Reed Richards. Obviously, they put them last in
Right.
that case. So
Right.
I was like I was happy, but then I low key started tearing up with Charles when he wheels in.
And
I
then not
started
even
crying.
that. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
like and I saw this in the TV spot, obviously,
Yeah,
and we
which
heard
they
his
Marvel
voice.
spoiled, which is
I can't
ridiculous.
believe them. But there were lines that he said that I'm like, "Oh my god, like,
We
this
should
is
tell him the
him."
truth. Oh,
Yeah, like,
so
the
great.
great
Yeah.
moments, don't get me wrong, but it's what happened afterwards where I'm like, "Why did you why?" Because we know Wanda's
Yeah.
powerful, there was
Yeah.
no need to do any of that other than to,
The
like,
sh
it
yeah.
you know what I mean? And then w oh my god, you know how much I love Captain America.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
how much I
Oh,
love
yeah.
him.
Yeah. That's
She
our boy.
says, "I could
Do
do
this
this all
all
day,"
day.
and then get
Yeah.
splits in half. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, "Why
Which
would you"
would
like
have really just kinda laid the groundwork for so many because
Yeah,
we saw, I think, what was it, Bucky, he split Steve up like that way, in that
yeah,
episode, and there's a lot of even the Doctor they I don't know, they they took a lot of I don't wanna say took a lot of elements 'cause it's
yeah.
under the same umbrella, but I guess they were preparing us for what was to come in this film. Um, so I guess for me, again, I was just so geeking out, I didn't even really think of,
Yeah,
like, what I liked or didn't like. I loved what we saw, but thinking about it more now, this Illuminati idea is kind of underwhelming because they're not the Illuminati of the multiverse. They're the Illuminati of that world. They're not like
yeah,
overlooking other multiverses. They're just looking over their 838 world with the,
yeah.
Doctor Strange being the creator of it. Which to your point, as far as underwhelming, it Wanda, like you said, well, Scarlet Witch is extremely dangerous, but
Mhm.
goodness gracious, Amanda, she takes them out with, like, absolute ease, which is just like, y'all are protecting what world? Being
I
able to
know.
and also
Yeah.
too, just, I guess, criticizing just, like, I guess, overhyping it or maybe diving a little bit, to not really focus on who these characters are, but, like, Charles, he didn't see that coming. He didn't, like,
Right.
it is kinda it does just seem like almost just like a more glorified
Yeah.
cameo.
I also feel like they were waiting to attack her,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Y'all can do it together, it's okay, like, not one
Yes.
right after the other, like,
Yeah.
teamwork,
Team,
like, if
yeah,
you're saying
and
you're
you
the
would think they were
Illuminati."
exactly, you would think they would have fought. I mean, they fought Thanos together as we saw
Yeah.
in the truth scene that they gave us here, that their Doctor
Mhm.
Strange was consumed by the Darkhold, and ultimately was taken out by Black Bolt with a whisper of an "I'm sorry." But I guess, yeah, to your point, I guess the only thing that I mean, besides, I mean, let's just get to it. I mean, come on, Amanda. The blood,
Oh,
she tells Reed as he's trying to stop her, stop what you're doing, Scarlet. And she says, "Do you have children?" "Yes, I have kids." "Is their mother still around?" "Yes." "Well, they're gonna need her." I mean, you gotta admit the lines, the bars,
just
the
dying.
savageness is pretty dope. Which I guess
Yeah.
to answer the question, Amanda, is since we got John Krasinski as Reed Richards, are we assuming that his wife Storm or Sue is Emily Blunt? Is it a package deal?
Well, you know what? It makes complete sense in this context
Yeah,
because you know what? This was pure, like,
yeah,
pure fan cast,
100%.
so it's only, like Yeah, I honestly think that it's her. I really do think that it's her because it just makes sense. It really
Yeah.
does make sense. But I also heard I was well, I read, not that I heard, but I was reading a theory where this is like an alternate reality
Hmm.
with the Illuminati, and it's not like within context of the multiverse.
Hmm.
So then Krasinski wouldn't be Reed Richards within the multiverse because it's like an alternate, like Elseworlds type of situation, like DC wise, from what
Mm.
I'm trying to understand. So I'm
Okay.
like, that's making it even more complicated. After I
Yeah.
read that, I'm like, why is it an
I
alternate
hope that's not the
reality?
case. Yeah, I hope that
I
they
hope, yeah, I hope
because I
not
mean, we know
either.
from at least from Loki's continuity that you can obviously look different in a different multiverse. Because obviously there was Sylvie was Loki in her world, and she's a completely different gender. So I think that
Yeah,
they can obviously still kind of play with that. But I fingers crossed that John Krasinski is the Reed Richards across
yeah,
multiple multiverses as well as
hopefully.
his wife and whatnot. But I mean, you already kind of touched on the scene here. But again, he gets spaghettied up, which was so crazy, and his head explodes at the end. We saw this in the commercial, but we saw,
Yeah.
her getting chopped in half and the blood on the shield at the end. I will say I was a little bit kind of like how she died. A statue fell over. That was kind of weak to me. And again, the rumors for almost the last year. This is Iron Man. Tom
I
Cruise is in the
know.
film. Like, no, no, he is
It would
not.
have been fun,
That would have
but
been pretty crazy. That would have been madness, And like you had
yeah,
mentioned, as far as this Illuminati and big cameos, they could have leaned more because we already, as you said, we've seen Haley Atwell as
yeah,
What If. This has been the fan casting has been there forever. Like you mentioned, Black Bolt's a badass. Don't get me wrong. Which the
yeah,
Inhumans are now canon in the MCU.
yeah,
But they could have, went crazy, Amanda. They could have had a Blade variant or a Namor, another Black Panther. They could have
yeah.
really leaned into the mad Deadpool for all a smarter, more intellectual
Like,
Deadpool versus they
how
could
do
have
you
really went
not put him
crazy.
in here though?
I was
Like,
shocked.
come on.
Out of all the movies that you could have had Deadpool appear in, this would have been it because it's madness.
Exactly. It just
They
doesn't
dropped
it
the
didn't make
ball.
sense to me, but
They dropped the
yeah.
ball, but you said it earlier, kind of wrapping up this Illuminati scene. Charles gets into her head, and again,
Yes.
another great horror scene. Even though I did feel bad for Charles because he just seems to die in the most brutal
I
ways. He gets
know.
obliterated in his film and X-Men Last Stand. He gets stabbed in the chest while the man was sleeping in Logan, and now he gets his head snapped while
I
in the
know.
head of Wanda. Which I'm not gonna lie, I love that scene because it was just so scary when she comes out of the smoke
Yeah.
and you see
Yeah.
Wanda trapped in her own mind. That was pretty cool. I just wish it wasn't
Yeah.
Charles because that's messed
I
up.
know, right?
This is, I guess, before we get into some final thoughts of the rest of the film. Do you think we'll see Professor or Professor X? We'll get him again, but do you think this is the last time we'll see Patrick Stewart in the role?
That is a very good question. Um, he's getting older. You could tell that he's aged a lot and
Yeah,
like he was
yeah,
moving slowly. He even speaks a bit slower than he
yeah.
normally does. Still a fantastic actor, don't get me wrong. But I think by the next time that we would get mutants,
Hmm.
it would have to be like a young Charles Xavier. That
I agree.
case, bring in James McAvoy
Bring
again. I
him
think he'd be
back.
like the
Bring
perfect
him.
age for it.
Yes, yes.
Okay, low key, I thought that going into the mind of Wanda, that Magneto was gonna
Would have
show
been
up.
Magneto. I
And
thought so too,
I'm
Amanda.
wearing
I
the
thought so
shirt right
too.
now, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, how cool would be like, I know your fault, like, you know what
Now,
I mean? Like your dad,
Michael
like
Fassbender or Ian
Fassbender, 100%. I think
Fassbender?
he
Yeah.
deserves another chance because he blew my
He's so
mind in
great.
the prequels. He's
Oh my
phenomenal. So I would
gosh.
have loved Fassi to come back. I know.
Kevin Feige, I really hope they recast, as you just mentioned.
Yeah,
James McAvoy, no disrespect to that cast, but they were
yeah,
the MVPs. Every single film, even the bad ones, they stood out as like the
yeah.
best parts of those films.
Mhm.
But as we kind of get into the third act of the film, we get Strange and Christine going to this dark world that's been imploded, or I can't think of the word they use, infusion, inclusion, or whatever it was when the multiverse
Incursion, yeah,
incursion.
yeah.
I need a Marvel dictionary with all these words that they're
I
implementing. What was the one in Eternals? It was like the something's coming in 7 days. I don't know. They just make up random
Yeah,
names,
they're
but
making up words.
just making up words now. Marvel can do that, but I gotta admit, I love the battle of the rap battle, the battle
Yes.
of the notes. That that was pretty badass. I'm not gonna
Right.
lie. And as Doctor Strange comes up with the idea that he's going to use the Darkhold, we see kind of a Harry Potter Dementors coming up and the evil
Yeah.
souls, which that visually speaking was just so cool, and that he uses
Loved
them
it.
as a cape. Like that is like
Yeah.
straight up out of a comic book. I love all that stuff. But as
Mhm.
we wrap up, a man in the film, just the third act wise, the structure of the third act, was there anything that kind of stood out to you? How we wrapped up the third act? Was there anything that you were hoping to get more
Mhm.
of? We got the third eye, Doctor Strange.
I know.
What was some of the most standout moments for you wrapping up the film?
Like you said, I think the song battle
Oh, so
gave
cool.
Danny Elfman the chance to play around with different compositions,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then like even Sam Raimi combined with that. Like, I wonder what came first. Like, did
Mm.
the score come first, and then Raimi was
That's a
like,
good
"Let's
question.
visually do it that
Kind
way,"
of,
or
yeah.
like, "Here's the concept, dude. Write it out for
Mm.
me," type of thing. So I don't know what came first in that case,
Right,
because
right.
it looked
So
so
cool.
fire and
So
so
cool.
wicked. I
Yeah.
think that's, like, top action scenes in the
100%.
MCU for me. Like, I
Yep.
really like that.
Yep.
Again, like you said, the visuals with the demons coming out. I
Mm-hmm.
did think that Zombie Strange, the makeup wasn't that great, 'cause
Mm.
and I don't know, it looked like old school makeup, which makes
I think so.
sense.
Practicality, Sam Raimi,
Yeah,
yeah,
makes
that's his
sense.
bag. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine, but I
Yeah.
think that you're putting, like, this heavy technology that we have now, and then you
Yeah.
have that as a
Yeah.
practical
Kind of
effect, like,
stands
it
out.
didn't really flow for me. Even, like, Benedict was, like, enunciating, and you could
Mm-hmm.
tell that he
Yeah.
was, and I was like, it was a bit
Mm-hmm.
much. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think he brought too much physicality to that, but, I think the most powerful moment in the 3rd act, this finale, is when, Chavez literally gets her powers. Like, she's like, "I know how to
Yeah.
control this. Beautiful
Yes.
work." And
Yes.
then that scene with
Here we
Scarlet
go.
Witch, the
Here we
kids, and
go.
Wanda, that is what stood out. So good. Just literally so
1000%.
emotional. Yeah,
Yep.
it was phenomenal.
I'm trying to. So again, I want to root for Doctor Strange because he does have
Yeah,
growth. Before, when it came to kids, he's never a kid person. I don't know. I guess I don't want to neglect the fact that we learned that he lost his sister at a young age, which they kind of thrown in there,
yeah,
kind of late in the
yeah,
game. Like it would have been nice to maybe get a little bit more of that compassion
yeah,
nature towards Doctor Strange. But I guess that
mhm,
kind of explains again. Number one, why he wants to save a kid. You know, he lost his sister at a kid age, but also too, that's why he wants to be a surgeon. He wants to save lives because he wasn't able to save her life. But
yeah,
I think, yeah, as you just mentioned, Wanda got the better arc to
she
end in
did.
that matter and then have that scene where she says, "I'll take care of them." You know, they're
Yeah,
fine. They're in good hands. And just at this point, she's the whole movie. I'm a mother, but she becomes the monster that she didn't want to be. I think that
mhm,
was the most powerful
yeah,
conclusion for the characters. Versus again, just wrapping my mind around Doctor Strange, it was just he was just reacting to stuff, right? I don't think he really
mhm,
got like a fully fleshed out from the beginning of the film to the end of the film. He wanted to help America Chavez from get go. He did
mhm,
eventually learn he didn't want to take her powers, as the other Doctor Strange did. But I'm just trying to think emotionally speaking. I think Wanda knocked out of the park as far as her emotional resonance stuck with
yeah.
me more so than what at the end of this film, Amanda. What would you say you learned more new, something new, or grown a certain appreciation for Doctor Strange? Is there anything in particular you can think of from how we wrap up the movie?
Honestly, that he has more abilities than I thought he had, and,
Yeah.
like, that's the only thing that I can say that I learned, and
Yeah.
that he has, like, pretty cool, like, other hymns in other universes, or else, like, what literally,
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
E,
he could
what
jump
did
off a
we learn?
balcony. Pretty cool. We
Yeah,
know
I
that.
mean, like,
Yeah.
cool, superhero, like, flying, like, that's sick, but what the hell, ma like, he went from, like, point A to point B, and, like,
Yeah.
nothing happened, and it sucks because
Yeah.
then the post-credit scene is like,
Mm.
w why? If you could have done I know. I don't know how to feel about this. How do you feel about it, Elliot?
So is it what is her name? Clea, I think is her
Clea,
name. Clea, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, no
Not too
worries.
familiar with the character, man. I'm gonna be honest
Same.
with you. This is one of the few, if only, post credit scene where I'm just like, huh, okay, cool. And obviously,
Yeah,
I've heard hints of the character. I think I even heard a rumor that she was going to be in it like months
same.
ago.
I
And I
did.
think that when I saw that rumor, they showed an image of the comic book character that she has, different
Yeah.
interaction with Doctor Strange. She could be a friend, she could be a foe. She has just as many abilities as he does. So cool character.
Mm.
But I'm just like, okay, sure. And it seemed kind of weird, for me, being honest with you. Like, she comes out of the blue. First off, the film ends really weird when he's just walking in the middle of the street, like
I
Mr.
know.
Rogers, and then he just gets the third eye that pops up, and we end on that note. And then it literally seemed like that scene was in the same scene, because it was like the same clothes, the same street that he was walking down. He just walked down.
Yeah.
It was just so weird. I don't know why that scene played out that way, but she comes out of the blue. Doctor Strange, you caused, a collision of another universe and splits
Yeah.
it open. It looks like it's the dark dimension with Dormammu, and she's like, "Are you gonna come? Are you afraid?" And he's like, "Afraid." It was weird. I don't know. That was very
Yeah.
corny and cheesy, but
Same.
we'll see. I mean, Charlize Theron, she is literally she's been a superhero for her whole career, and now she gets the opportunity. I think, we saw her in the
Yeah.
Old Guard, but I don't know if that film is really the film you want someone of her capabilities to really lead a
Yeah.
franchise. So I'm glad that Marvel, I thought DC should have did it years ago, to scoop her up, but Marvel has her. So, I mean, are you excited for Clea and Doctor Strange and their adventures in the multiverse moving forward?
I am.
Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, I love Charlize Theron,
it's
but
great.
like I love her. I
Yeah,
just feel like there's so many big names now that it's
yeah,
like it's hard to even like is some up and coming actor ever going to get cast? Like,
right.
you know what I mean? Isn't no
Yeah.
name ever going to get cast again like they did at the beginning, right? And to give them a chance. But I love her, don't get me wrong. I just think that they're going to be the baddies in phase 5. I don't think we're
Mm,
gonna see them unless it's or see Doctor Strange unless it's Quantum Mania. I
yeah.
don't really think that we're gonna get Doctor Strange now unless it's like a team up, but they're gonna be the big bads in the future
So you
eventually.
think Doctor Strange will lean more into
Yeah.
especially with this third eye,
Yeah, I
the
think
dark
so.
hold?
I think so. I really do.
Ooh,
It makes sense. And then like
ooh,
because if Wanda did that with Scarlet Witch
yeah.
when she had the dark hold, then it
Mm.
only makes
Is it too
sense
is
for
it too
him.
repetitive though to see Wanda getting corrupted? Now Doctor Strange gets corrupted.
It
Will he
I don't know.
control it better? Maybe.
Maybe. It
Yeah.
depends what they do with it, right? Like, they
Right.
could
Right.
it depends, so I don't know.
I mean, not being entirely like as familiar with Doctor Strange as other comic book characters, but again, as
Yeah.
you just mentioned, with his third eye now,
Mm.
we talked about Midnight Suns the other day on Wednesday with Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Blade. Maybe that's their adversary. Maybe they have to stop Doctor Strange if
Maybe.
we see them moving forward. But
Yeah.
I'm more excited for Doctor Strange stories than I was before this film, just because again I wasn't
Yeah.
the biggest fan of that film. But we'll
Same.
see what comes of it. We wrapped the film up with the funny post credit scene. Oh, it's over. He stops beating himself in the face. But
Just
before we head out, Amanda, one
yeah.
last question: when
Mhm.
and where will we see this character again?
You know what? I wrote a piece about it today. I think it's either gonna be her
Hmm.
or Kate Bishop in Quantumania. I think there needs to
Oh,
be
okay.
a connection to the Young Avengers, and I think if
Yes,
Kang is
yes.
involved, I
Oof,
do
can't
think that
wait.
America would be the one to be like, "Hey, yo, we need help," and
Mm.
like,
I
if it's not gonna be top build, I think it would be her.
I mean, you mentioned, I mean, and I love Haley Steinfeld, but listen, she can't. Look, she did take out Kingpin, so I mean, she might be able to take out King.
She
So
really tried.
but I love your theory on Quantum Quantumanium because it makes sense. A multiversal threat
Yeah,
like Kane have someone as trained in the well, she doesn't know the ins and outs of the multiverse, but she's
right.
traveled across the multiverse. So I love that
Yeah.
theory, man. I would love to see her team up with them, and we know that they are a family, family friendly type of film. She needs a family, so maybe, even though I
Yeah.
know she's now being trained with Wong, which I was surprised Ned wasn't somewhere training, since he's a sorcerer now, right? He knows
Right.
all the magic. I was surprised he wasn't leading the students there, because he's so natural at it. But yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to see her pop up in that film, her and Scott and Hope, and maybe a Fantastic Four too. Like, because I mean, Kane's no joke, Amanda. We know Kane is no one to
No.
play with. I know you love Ant-Man, but let's be honest, Amanda. Ant-Man and them, they can't take on Kane. They're gonna need the cavalry. They're gonna need some help.
They're gonna need
They're
it.
gonna need
They
all the help in
will.
the world.
As long as
But
they don't die. As long as Scott doesn't die, I'll be
I
okay.
don't know, man. There's a
I
third
know.
film, and we've been passing the baton all this franchise. He's gonna be
I
passing to
know.
what's his daughter's name?
Cassie, yeah.
Cassie Lang, and she's
Yeah.
stature in the comics. So I don't know, man. We
Lord.
might have be seeing the last days of Mr. Paul Rudd.
No. No.
Well, I mean, this is the fun thing about Marvel. We have, unlike we know we're DC lovers. We don't know where they're going. At least we know we can expect things from Marvel. We got
Thankfully.
Thor, we got Black Panther 2, we got Ant-Man next year, and the Marvel.
Yeah.
So I mean, this train just keep on going, and we
Yeah.
still don't know where Phase 4 is headed. That's the beauty of this Phase 4. I still
No
don't know
idea.
where what direction we're going in, which is always
Yeah.
fun. We can't expect the unexpected from Marvel. But Amanda, I know you have another live stream to host in a little bit, but I can't thank you enough for joining me on this pre-recorded stream
Yeah.
talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Overall, before you head out, if you were to give this a grade, which I know you have your review and your article up, but grade wise, what's the number, and where do you, I think I saw your letterbox, but where do you rank this film amongst the other 28 now?
Yeah. So I gave this a 3.5 out of 5, which isn't too bad. I really enjoyed it. But there were some issues like that. I think I put this in 15th spot. Like 15, like middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack,
I feel like I would rewatch this one more than the first Doctor Strange. Like that's where I'm at.
1000%.
Yeah.
Yes,
This is where I'm at. So
I
that's a
agree.
good thing, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
It is a good thing. It is. I'd agree,
Yeah.
especially coming from, it can only go up from that first one. I'll just
Exactly.
say that. Well, Amanda, outroing out. If you want to let the people at home know where they can find you and all your great articles and content, please let the people know.
Yeah, you guys can always follow me over at AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You can check out my website, candidxcinema.com, and my YouTube, Candid Cinema. And I'll see you guys soon, very soon, because we got a lot of Marvel to talk about.
More and more Marvel. Can't stop, won't stop. Well, again, Amanda, thank you so much for joining me today. And again, guys, check her out. Her link's in the bio. Again, if you haven't already, like, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and keep an eye out for some more. We got Miss Marvel. We got other Marvel stuff to cover. So keep an eye out for all that fun stuff. So again, guys, thank you for watching this discussion, and we'll catch you on the next one.